The gunshot cracked through the cold Texas morning, sharp and deafening, like a thunderclap right overhead. I froze. My chest pounded so hard I could hear the thump echoing in my ears. My eyes locked on her, Karen. She stumbled back, hands raised in pure shock. Blood blossomed on her shoulder like red ink spilling across paper. For a second, time stopped. Then I found my voice. "Call 911, I shouted, sprinting toward the gate. My wife Maggie was already there, trembling as she screamed into her phone. "There's been a shooting. She was trespassing. Oh my God." And there she was, Karen, caught red-handed, again. She'd been trying to climb over our fence, carrying a burlap sack stuffed full of stolen goods. Fresh eggs, a few tools, maybe some vegetables. Whatever she could grab before I caught her. But this time, I had the shotgun. The bullet wasn't supposed to hit her. It was a warning shot. Wild, desperate, maybe just bad luck. Or maybe it wasn't. I honestly don't know anymore. Now she sat slumped against the wooden post, her face pale, lips trembling but alive, blood soaking her sleeve. She stared at me, not scared, but furious. And all I could think was, how the hell did it come to this? How does a woman, a self-declared protector of community aesthetics, end up stealing from my farm and getting herself shot? Then came the sirens, loud and fast, already screaming in the distance. But let me take you back, because this mess didn't start with a gunshot. No, it started 6 months earlier with a dream. A simple dream about peace, simplicity, and tomatoes. After years stuck in the suburbs, dealing with traffic, noise, and nosy neighbors, Maggie and I finally did it. We sold the house, packed everything we owned, and moved out to a quiet patch of land just outside Cottonwood Springs, Texas. 14 acres. Not huge by Texas standards, but to us, it was heaven. No more honking horns, no more neighbors peeking through the blinds. And most importantly, no HOA, or so we thought. We built our dream home with our own hands. Took us 6 months, but we did it. Raised chickens, planted rows of tomatoes, kale, zucchini, even took a shot at strawberries. Texas sun is brutal, so those didn't make it. I fixed up an old red barn out back. Hard work, sure, but it felt good, felt real. For the first time, something was truly ours. Then the email started coming. To the owner of 2175 Willow Bend Trail, the first one read, "It has come to our attention that you are in violation of community standard codes." Community standards? We weren't even part of the neighborhood. That was the whole damn point. Turns out the HOA from the fancy subdivision next door claimed they had visual authority over our property because they could see our barn from their cul-de-sac. And leading the charge? Karen, mid-50s, ironed polos, clipboard in hand, and a permanent scowl like she'd been born angry. That's where the real trouble began. Karen wasn't just the president of the HOA. She acted like she was the mayor of a private country club. The first week we moved in, she came strutting across our property line like she owned it. No knock, no introduction. Just marched right up to our barn, tapping the rusted siding with her clipboard like she was inspecting one of her own rental properties. "You'll need to paint this," she declared, her voice flat and sharp. "It's rust red. We only allow forest green or white within visible sightlines of our community." I stood there stunned silent. Maggie wasn't, though. She stepped up, chin raised. "Ma'am, this is private property. We're not under your HOA. Karen sniffed, adjusting her collar like the smell of dirt offended her. "If it affects our property values, it's our business." And just like that, the line was drawn. From that day forward, it was war. She started small. Called animal control on our chickens, claiming the roosters crowing was emotional terrorism. Sent us letters stuffed in our mailbox, each one stamped compliance notice, complete with photos she must have taken while lurking behind the tree line. We ignored her at first, figuring she'd get bored and move on. She didn't. One morning, I woke up to find the barn tagged with white paint. Huge block letters, crude but loud. We didn't have cameras up back then, no evidence, but we knew who did it. After that, small things began disappearing. A bucket, a garden trowel, a whole dozen eggs gone like they'd sprouted legs. Maggie thought I was being paranoid until the night she caught Karen on her phone camera, standing there under the moonlight, digging around in our chicken coop like some crazed raccoon. We took it to the sheriff's office. They shrugged. Footage is too blurry, they said. We'll have a word with her. Nothing happened, so I wired up cameras, motion sensors, posted no trespassing signs every 30 feet along the fence line. Still, she came back. One morning, the tomatoes, every last one, were just gone. A single muddy footprint left by the garden bed. After that, Maggie started sleeping with the lights on. I slept with the shotgun under the bed. Then came the morning everything changed. The sun was barely up, sky golden and soft. I was brewing coffee when the barn alarm blared. I grabbed the shotgun and ran. There she was, Karen, hauling a full sack over the fence. Eggs, tools, vegetables. I yelled, "Get off my property!" She didn't stop. Reached into her jacket. For what, I didn't know. A phone, pepper spray, a gun? I fired. The warning shot went wide. Or maybe it didn't. Karen stumbled, fell, blood soaked her sleeve. Maggie screamed, and deep down I knew. We were past the point of no return. The ambulance came fast, too fast, like they were already on their way. Karen sat slumped by the fence post, clutching her shoulder. Her face was pale, lips trembling, but her eyes weren't filled with fear. They were filled with fury. "I want him arrested," she hissed through gritted teeth as the paramedics lifted her onto the gurney. "He tried to kill me." I tried to speak, to explain, but the deputy sheriff held out his hand. "Sir, we need you to step back." Maggie was crying now, shaking with fear. "It was an accident. He didn't mean to shoot her. She was trespassing. Look at the signs. She's been harassing us for months." The deputy didn't say much, just nodded slowly, taking everything in. The sack Karen had dropped, the fence she'd been trying to climb, the camera mounted on the barn, still blinking. "You got that on footage?" he asked me, his voice steady but probing. I nodded. "Yeah, everything. Every single second." But even as I said it, I couldn't shake the cold feeling in my chest. What if the footage didn't show the full truth? What if Karen somehow played the victim well enough to twist the story? What if I lost everything? The sirens wailed again, and Karen was loaded into the back of the ambulance. As they drove away, the deputy turned to me. "For now, you're not under arrest, but we'll need a statement, and we'll need to take your firearm into evidence." I handed over the shotgun, trying to steady my hands as I did. Maggie wrapped her arm around me, whispering, "It's going to be okay." But that night, I wasn't so sure. It was the first time since we'd moved in that I couldn't sleep on our land. The sheriff's office took us to the station for statements, and we didn't get back until well past midnight. The stars were out, cold and bright, like a sky full of watching eyes. When we pulled up to the house, the barn door was swinging open. That was odd. I always made sure to close it every night. I grabbed the flashlight, heart pounding. There was nothing inside, just the sound of the wind creaking through the old wood. But in the corner where I kept the feed sacks, I noticed something strange. A hole dug under the floorboards. It wasn't deep, but it looked like someone had been hiding something there. I crouched down, brushing the dirt aside. At first, I couldn't see anything, just the imprint of something square. Then I smelled it. Oil, gasoline. That's when it hit me. Karen wasn't just stealing eggs. She had been looking for something, or hiding something. And whatever it was, she didn't want us to find it. 2 weeks passed, no charges, no visits, just silence. We heard through the grapevine that Karen was milking the incident for all it was worth. She told her HOA friends that she'd been hunted down like an animal by the wild man in the woods. I couldn't believe it, but it didn't surprise me either. We didn't leave the property much after that. It felt like everyone in town knew what had happened, but strangely, nobody came to check on us. No cops, no reporters, not even Karen came by. That was until one morning we received a letter. It was official, sealed, and delivered by courier. I opened it slowly, my hands trembling as I read the contents. It was from the HOA's attorney, and they were suing us for $350,000. The charges? Civil trespassing, liability, emotional distress, intent to cause harm, and endangerment of community welfare. $350,000. Maggie sat down hard on the porch bench. "This is a joke, right?" she whispered, staring at the letter in disbelief. "This is a joke." I stared at the paper, my gut sinking. "She's trying to ruin us," I said, my voice low. Why? Maggie whispered. Why not just leave us alone? And then we heard something, a snap of a twig behind the house. I grabbed the flashlight, my pulse racing. The beam swept across the back field. Something moved. Two figures. Not one, but two. They were walking quickly, slipping behind the trees like shadows. As I hurried toward the fence, a trail of cracked eggs lay scattered on the ground where they had been standing. Maggie screamed. I ran toward the fence, my flashlight bouncing wildly. But by the time I reached the spot, they were already gone. They'd left something behind. A note, taped to the back of the chicken coop. In big red letters, it read, "Next time, it won't just be eggs." We didn't sleep that night. Maggie kept asking, "Do you think it was Karen?" I didn't answer her. Deep down, I didn't think it was just her anymore. Someone else was involved. Someone who didn't care about fences, cameras, or court orders. The next day, I dug deeper into the hole I'd found in the barn, literally tore up the floorboards. There, hidden in the dirt, I found something, a plastic case. Inside were blueprints, maps, and a memory card. That's when the power went out. All of a sudden, the lights in the house went black. The barn was dark too. "Jack," Maggie screamed from the kitchen. I ran inside and Maggie pointed out the window. There, standing just beyond the edge of the driveway, was a man in a hoodie watching. He didn't move. He just stared. And then, without a sound, he turned and disappeared into the trees. I called the sheriff. They said someone would come by in the morning. But I wasn't waiting. I fired up the backup generator, got the power running again, and immediately began copying the memory card to my laptop. Maggie sat beside me, her eyes wide. "What do you think is on it?" she asked. "I don't know," I said, my mind racing, "but someone didn't want us to find it." The screen flickered, files loaded, and one by one I opened them. Blueprints of our land, underground routes, access points marked near the creek bed, videos, drone footage, zooming in on our barn, our garden, our bedroom window. Someone had been watching us for months. Before the barn, before the eggs, before the shot. Maggie covered her mouth in shock. "What is this?" I stared at the screen, my blood turning cold. This wasn't about stolen eggs. It wasn't even about Karen. She had just been the beginning. The gunshot had started a war, but we hadn't seen the real enemy yet, and they were already inside the fence. I didn't wait for the sheriff. I grabbed the case, the memory card, and everything else I could find, tossed it all into the back of my truck, and drove straight into Cottonwood Springs. Maggie didn't want me going alone. "Please, Jack, don't go." But I told her to stay back, lock every door, and keep the shotgun close. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were already too deep. When I reached the sheriff's station, I asked for Deputy Morales. He was the only one who'd seemed halfway interested when Karen had been shot. A solid guy, mid-30s, sharp eyes that missed nothing. He'd grown up around here, said his dad used to fish by the same creek that cut through our land. I handed him the case. "What's this?" he asked, flipping it open. "Something's wrong," I said, my voice tight. "This isn't just about a trespassing HOA lady with a God complex. Someone else is involved." Morales raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet. He slid the memory card into his computer. The seconds felt like hours as I watched him click through the files. Then I saw it. His face went pale. It was the same reaction I'd had when I first looked at the files. Blueprints of our land, surveillance logs, time-stamped notes, private coordinates. "What the hell?" Morales muttered under his breath. "These look like smuggling tunnels," he said, leaning in closer, his finger tracing a specific mark on the screen. "This marking here, that's the county gas line." "Who the hell marked that?" I asked, my voice low. "I don't know," I said, swallowing hard. "But this was buried under my barn. Karen's been sneaking onto my land for months. I think she was either hiding this or looking for it." Morales exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. "This could be serious, like federal-level serious." "Then why hasn't anyone done anything?" I shot back. "She got shot. That was 2 weeks ago. No charges, no press, no follow-up. It's like they're pretending it never happened." He stared at the screen a moment longer before nodding slowly. "Let me make a few calls. Go home, but keep that place locked down, you hear me?" I left the station with more questions than answers, but I had a feeling Morales knew more than he was letting on. His face had gone pale when he saw those files. like he'd recognized something he wasn't supposed to. When I got back home, Maggie was on edge. "You were gone too long." "Had to talk to Morales," I replied. "He's looking into it." She nodded, biting her lip. "While you were gone, someone left this." She handed me an envelope, no name, no stamp, just a scrap of torn brown paper inside. I opened it slowly and read the words scrawled on the paper. "You're in over your head. Leave before it's too late." My stomach turned to stone. Maggie was shaking now. "I'm scared, Jack. This isn't just Karen anymore. This is bigger. I don't know what's going on, but it's not safe." I pulled her close, trying to reassure her. "We'll be okay, I promise." But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. The next 2 days were eerily quiet. No motion alarms, no trespassers, no Karen. It was too quiet. But then, around 3 a.m. it happened. We woke up to the sound of popping wood and the eerie glow of orange fire lighting up our bedroom ceiling. My heart dropped as I bolted out of bed, Maggie right behind me. We ran outside, barefoot, our pajamas damp with sweat from the heat, the gravel crunching under our feet. The barn I had poured months of hard work into, was already swallowed by flames. I grabbed the garden hose, spraying it uselessly on the sides, coughing in the thick smoke. The fire had moved too fast, too fierce, like it had been fed gasoline. "Maggie, the chickens!" I shouted, but it was too late. The barn was gone, the fire devouring everything in its path. I stood there helpless, tears stinging my eyes as the roof caved in. The barn, the tools, the feed, the solar battery backups, everything was gone. In that moment, it felt like everything I'd worked for had turned to ash. When the fire finally died down, I dropped to my knees in the smoldering ruins. The heat lingered in the air, the smell of burned wood and smoke filling my lungs. As I dug through the rubble, half buried under a charred beam, I found something that didn't belong. A phone. It was burnt, but not completely. I picked it up, holding it carefully, and just before the screen fizzled out, a name flashed across it. Karen. I didn't know if it was her phone or if someone wanted us to think it was. I stared at it, my mind racing. The next morning, Deputy Morales showed up to inspect the scene. He was tense, sweating, and barely said a word as he walked the perimeter, examining the remains. I pointed to the gas line running under the property. "Someone did this on purpose," I said, my voice low and tight. "They wanted to destroy that barn." Morales muttered under his breath. "I know, I believe you." He kicked at the scorched dirt before leaning in closer. "There's something I didn't tell you." "What?" I asked, my throat dry. "That memory card you brought in?" He looked up at me, his face grim. "We found prints on it. They matched a guy named Colin Riggs. He used to work for a pipeline company that got shut down a few years back for illegal drilling." "What's he got to do with me?" I asked. "Riggs disappeared a year ago. The feds think he was operating off-grid, using old maps to steal fuel or water from rural lines. Your land, your barn, might have been one of his sites." Maggie stepped forward. "You think Karen was working with him?" Morales paused, looking away for a moment. "I don't know yet, but I think she knew something. Maybe she found the stash. Maybe she tried to blackmail him, or maybe she was trying to keep you from finding it first. But why the lawsuit? Why go through all that trouble?" Maggie's voice cracked, her eyes wide with fear. "Because when you dig up someone's secrets," Morales said grimly, "you don't just make enemies. You make scared enemies." Just then, his radio crackled to life. "Unit 3, we've got a 1055 abandoned vehicle. Plates match suspect Colin Riggs. Location, East Ridge Creek." Morales and I locked eyes. The creek ran right through my property. He clicked his radio again. "This is Morales. I'm 5 minutes out." Then he looked at me, his face hardening. "You coming?" I didn't hesitate. Maggie grabbed my arm, her voice trembling. "Be careful." I nodded and followed him, both of us driving down the narrow trail to East Ridge Creek. The trees hung low, the path barely wide enough for the truck. It was the kind of place where cell service dies and all you can hear are the sounds of the woods. We reached the clearing, and there it was, a rusted black pickup with the hood popped open. Lying next to it was a body, face down in the dirt, still. Morales drew his weapon and I followed closely behind. He flipped the body over with his boot. It wasn't Riggs, it was someone else. Mid-20s, dirty clothes, greasy hands, but on his wrist, a tag. HOA maintenance crew. Morales looked at me, his face hard. "This is getting out of control," he muttered. Just then a gunshot rang out. We both dropped flat behind the truck, hearts pounding. Another shot whizzed past, closer this time. Someone was out there, watching, waiting. I looked at Morales, who was staring into the trees, his jaw tight. "He's still here," I whispered. We weren't alone anymore. The gunshot echoed again, this time closer, cracking through the trees like a whip. Morales yanked me behind the truck, his eyes darting toward the tree line. "Stay down," he hissed, his voice low and urgent. I didn't argue. I could hear the rustling of leaves, sharp and fast, about 30 yards out. Someone was running. Morales peered over the hood, steadying his gun, then gave me a look I'll never forget. "Back me up," he said, his voice steady but tense. "But don't be a hero." He darted to the left, weaving low between the bushes. I followed to the right, my heart hammering so hard I could barely hear the crunch of my boots over the dry brush. The trees closed in around us. I couldn't see Morales anymore, but I could hear him, his voice, firm, shouting. "Drop it, hands where I can see 'em." Then came the thud, a grunt, and the crash of branches. I sprinted toward the noise, my lungs burning. My flashlight bobbed wildly in my hands, and that's when I saw them. Morales and a man locked in a struggle near the creek's edge. The guy had wild eyes, long hair, and was covered in mud and grease like he hadn't seen a shower in weeks. Riggs. He shoved Morales hard and made a break for it, sprinting across the shallows of the creek. I raised the flashlight and yelled, "Stop!" But he didn't. Instead, he turned, pulling something from his waistband. A pistol. I dove behind a tree as he fired. The bark exploded above my head, and I felt the air crack with the force of it. Morales returned fire, 2 quick shots. Riggs went down hard, collapsing into the water. Silence. Just the sound of the creek gurgling past his floating body. Morales rushed in, kicking the gun away and checking his pulse. "Still alive," he muttered. "Barely." He looked at me. "Call it in. He's the one. He knows everything." 2 hours later, the whole creek was swarming with law enforcement. Locals, feds, men in black windbreakers who didn't say much but took over everything. They loaded Riggs onto a stretcher, cuffed to the rails, still unconscious. One of the agents, a tall woman with silver hair and no-nonsense eyes, came over to where I stood. "Your name?" she asked. Jack Dalton." "You were the one who found the memory card?" she asked. I nodded. She glanced out toward the trees, then back at me. "You have any idea what you've just stepped into?" "Not really," I admitted. "Good," she said without smiling. "Keep it that way." She handed me a card, no name, just a number. "Call this if you see anything else strange." And then, before I could respond, she added, "Mr. Dalton, don't go digging any deeper. It's not just eggs and garden tools anymore." She turned and walked off, disappearing into the huddle of agents and vehicles. By the time I got back to the house, the sky was starting to bleed orange again, the sun dipping low behind the trees. Maggie was waiting on the porch, still in her robe, the shotgun resting across her lap. I told her everything. Riggs, the body, the feds. She listened quietly, her eyes wide and unblinking. When I finished, she asked, "What about Karen?" I stared out at the road, my mind racing. "She's involved somehow." I paused, trying to make sense of it. Either she knew what Riggs was doing, or she found it after he left. Maggie leaned forward, her voice soft but full of doubt. What if she was trying to stop him? What if the trespassing, the eggs, the lawsuit, it was all just her way of warning us off? I shook my head. She had a gun pulled on us last year. She's not innocent. But even as I said it, a part of me wondered if Karen wasn't the worst of it. Could she have been trying to stop whatever was going on? Or was she part of something darker? Maggie whispered, "Maybe she's not the worst one." That stuck with me. The next day we got another letter. This time it was slipped under the gate. No envelope, just a piece of white paper, folded neatly. I opened it slowly. It read, "You should have left. It's not over." Maggie's hand trembled as she read it. "They're still out there. Someone else." I took the letter from her and burned it without saying a word. We're not going anywhere, I told her firmly. This is our home. They want us scared? Too bad. 3 nights later, the chickens started screaming. It was past midnight. No wind, no coyotes, just this sudden, horrible sound. Shrieking, flapping, and something slamming against the sides of the coop. Maggie and I burst out the front door, weapons ready. We sprinted to the coop, flashlights slicing through the darkness. When we reached it, we froze. The coop gate was wide open. Feathers were everywhere. One hen was flopping on the ground, injured but alive. But that wasn't what made my stomach drop. Across the side of the coop, in jagged, angry letters, was spray-painted, "Blood for Blood." Maggie gasped. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer. I was already looking past the coop, into the woods. There, standing still, was a shape, watching. Not Karen, not Riggs, someone else. Then, without a sound, the figure turned and disappeared into the trees. The next morning, Morales came back, looking like he hadn't slept in days. We traced Riggs' phone. Morales was the one to break the news. "You know who he was calling the night before the barn burned down?" he asked. "Who?" I replied. "Karen." Maggie blinked, her face pale. "She was involved?" Morales nodded, but then he added, "Here's the twist. The number he called wasn't her personal phone. It was a burner, traced back to a P.O. box rented under a fake name in your town. Someone local, someone connected." My mouth went dry. "What are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying Karen might have been in over her head," Morales said. "She could have been blackmailed into helping Riggs. Or worse, maybe she was trying to stop him." Maggie stared at us both, her voice cracking. "Then who's behind it all?" Morales hesitated, his face grim. "We don't know, not yet. But whoever it is, they've been using your land for years." Just then his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then froze. Karen's gone missing. The wind was whispering through the branches like voices in the dark. Then my phone buzzed. No number, just one message. A photo. Karen, bound, blindfolded, sitting in what looked like a storm cellar. The words, "You want answers, come get them." Coordinates followed. I showed Maggie the screen. Her face went pale. "Jack," she whispered, her voice trembling. "That's under our property." And then we heard it. A faint knocking, coming from the fields, from underground. The knocking was slow, steady, like someone tapping on the underside of our land with metal knuckles. Maggie grabbed my arm, her voice barely more than a whisper. "You heard that, right?" I nodded, listening hard. Knock, knock, knock. It was coming from the far edge of the tomato beds, near the line where the grass met the woods, right where that old rusted water pump sat, the one we thought didn't work. I grabbed the flashlight and the shotgun. "Call Morales. Tell him to get here now." I handed her my phone. "And whatever happens, don't come down after me." Her eyes filled with tears. "Jack!" But I kissed her forehead and ran into the dark, my heart racing. The soil around the pump was softer than I remembered, like it had been disturbed recently. The knocking had stopped. I circled the pump and spotted something I'd never noticed before. A handle, half buried in the dirt. I dug around it with my bare hands, my fingers hitting cold steel. A trap door, hidden beneath a layer of sod and grass. I braced myself, then lifted it. It creaked open, revealing a narrow tunnel, concrete and dirt, with metal rungs leading straight down into pitch blackness. And something else, a smell of gasoline, sweat, damp earth. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm as I climbed down. The tunnel dropped about 20 feet, then leveled off into a cramped corridor, just wide enough for me to crouch. The walls were lined with old boards and pipes, wrapped in duct tape and wires. The air was stale, heavy, a kind of silence that presses on your ears. As I moved deeper, I started seeing things. Crates stacked high, some open, filled with electronics, batteries, even radios. Then I reached a room carved right into the earth. Maps covered the walls, satellite photos, diagrams of our property, and in the center, a chair. Karen sat there, blindfolded, tied at the wrists and ankles. Alive, barely. I rushed to her, tearing the blindfold off. Her face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, lips cracked. She blinked, gasped, and whispered, "Jack, you have to go now." But I didn't move. Who did this to you? Who's behind all this? I asked, my voice shaking. Karen started to cry. You don't understand. It's not just me. They've been using your land for years. Underground storage, smuggling routes, power siphoning. She paused, trying to gather her breath. I tried to stop it. I tried to warn you, but they wouldn't let me. I tried to make you leave. I thought if I scared you off, they'd leave me alone, Karen whispered, her voice trembling. Who? I demanded, my hands shaking as I cut the ropes binding her wrists. Who are they? Karen's lips trembled as she struggled to speak, barely able to hold herself together. He used to be on the HOA board. He's not anymore, though. He got bought out. Money, lots of it. He said if I didn't help, they'd hurt me. Just as she finished, the lights in the tunnel flickered, casting eerie shadows across the walls. A hum buzzed through the concrete. My breath caught. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Not one pair, but multiple. They were coming from the other side of the tunnel. Karen's eyes went wide. He's coming, she gasped, her face draining of color. He knows you're here. I didn't wait. I cut her ropes as quickly as I could. She was weak, barely able to stand, but I hoisted her up onto my shoulder. I ran back through the narrow corridor, the sound of footsteps growing closer with every passing second. Halfway up the metal ladder, I heard it, the sound that made my blood run cold. The trapdoor slammed shut above us, locked from the outside. I kicked at it, slammed my shoulder into it, but it wouldn't budge. Karen was wheezing, barely holding on, her body shaking. Then I remembered. My phone was gone. I'd left it with Maggie. But Karen had something on her. An old, tiny flip phone, duct taped to her ankle, probably planted there as a final cruel joke. It still had a charge, no signal, but a number was saved in it. I hit the number and waited. It rang once, twice, then someone answered. I didn't speak, but the voice came low, calm, smooth like a snake. Well, didn't think you'd get this far, the voice said, almost amused. I froze, the blood draining from my face. Karen started crying, her voice trembling with fear. Please let us go. No, the man replied, his voice hardening. You broke the rules. Now you pay. That land was meant to stay forgotten, buried, and you brought light to it. Then the line went dead. The lights flickered again, and that was when I felt it. The air grew thick. Smoke started to fill the tunnel, not from fire, but from something else. Something they were trying to use to finish the job. Back at the house, Maggie was on the porch, phone in hand. She was screaming into the line. You don't understand. They're in the ground. Jack went down there. He hasn't come back. You have to hurry. But as she spoke, she heard something, a soft electronic beep from the woods. She stepped off the porch, her feet crunching over something in the grass. Wires. Wires running through the dirt, leading to a small metal box nestled under the bushes. A red light flashing on it. The timer blinked. 0023. 0022. Maggie backed away slowly, her heart in her throat. Then she screamed, Get out of there! I could hear her through the phone. My heart was racing in the tunnel, but the gas was getting stronger, hissing in the darkness. Karen collapsed to the ground, her body shaking uncontrollably. We're going to die, she sobbed, her voice barely audible. I grabbed a metal rod from the tunnel floor and slammed it into the hatch above us. Once, twice, nothing. It wouldn't give. Then I saw it, a crack in the wall, just big enough for me to shove my shoulder into. I threw myself at it, once, twice, and the dirt crumbled away. A second tunnel, half collapsed but clear enough to crawl through. I grabbed Karen, hoisted her onto my back again, and dove into the dark. We crawled with everything we had. Behind us, the gas hissed louder, the light from the trap door disappearing behind the bend. 010. 009. I saw it. The hatch, not ours. I hit it with both hands. It popped open. Fresh air flooded in. Stars filled the sky. And there, standing by the chicken coop, was Maggie screaming my name. I exploded out of the ground, dragging Karen behind me. Maggie ran forward, her arms outstretched. We made it 20 feet before the earth behind us exploded. A thunderous boom shook the ground. Fire and soil rained down from the sky as the old tunnel was buried forever. The sheriff and federal agents arrived within minutes. Morales was pale but steady, his face grim as he watched them take Karen into custody. This time she wasn't a criminal. she was a witness. She gave up the name, Stephen Burke, the former HOA treasurer who disappeared 2 years ago. But he wasn't gone. He'd been under our feet the whole time, running black market energy lines, storing contraband, using the HOA to hide permits, and building escape tunnels across half the county. Karen had tried to stop him in her own twisted way. And we'd blown it all up. Literally. It's been 4 weeks now. The land is quiet again. No more notes, no more shadows. The garden is growing, though the chickens are gone. The barn will take time to rebuild. So will the sleep. But we're okay. We're safe for now. Because if we learned anything from all of this, it's that darkness doesn't always come at night. Sometimes it wears a smile, carries a clipboard, and lives next door. This story reveals several crucial lessons about the hidden dangers lurking beneath the surface of everyday life and how appearances can be deceiving. At the heart of the narrative, we see the tension between Jack and Karen, who initially seem to be at odds as she embodies the overbearing HOA figure. However, as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the true threat wasn't just her, but the underground operations involving corruption, smuggling, and the manipulation of power by figures like Stephen Burke, who hides behind the facade of a trusted community leader. One of the most profound lessons here is that evil doesn't always look like evil. It doesn't always present itself in the form of a dark, ominous figure. Sometimes it wears a suit, carries a clipboard, and hides behind official titles like an HOA president. This is a powerful reminder that injustice can hide in plain sight, often under the guise of authority, regulation, or even well-meaning social structures. Another key lesson is the power of resilience and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Throughout the story, Jack and Maggie refuse to back down, even when confronted with threats far beyond what they ever expected when they first moved to their land. Despite being harassed by Karen, dealing with an escalating series of dangerous encounters, and discovering hidden secrets about their property, they continue to fight for what is theirs. This serves as a reminder that even in the darkest times, the strength to continue to persevere and to stand up for what is right is vital. This resilience isn't just about physical survival. It's about holding on to integrity and truth when it feels like the world is pushing you to let go. Moreover, the theme of secrecy and hidden agendas teaches that sometimes the truth is buried so deep that it takes more than just courage to uncover. It requires digging deeper, both figuratively and literally. The story urges us to question what we are told, to look beyond the surface, and to not accept things at face value. Trusting your instincts and pushing through the fear of uncovering uncomfortable truths is essential, even when it seems impossible. Finally, the story serves as a powerful metaphor for community involvement in the dangers of unchecked power. While the HOA might initially seem like a simple, insignificant entity, its reach and influence can extend far beyond the neighbor's fences, revealing a deeper, more sinister control at play. It's a cautionary tale that calls for vigilance and active participation in the systems around us, especially when those in power are given unchecked authority. The lesson here is clear. Silence and inaction can enable those who operate in the shadows to thrive. But standing up, speaking out, and seeking the truth can bring even the darkest secrets into the light.